2025-2027 MTEF and FSP submitted to the National Assembly.
Senate receives presidential request for external borrowing of $2.2 billion.
Restrictions lifted on posting of corps members in the country.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss COP29 Summit on climate change.
"29 years ago, the United Nations Climate Change Conferences, also known as COP conferences, ushered in the world's only multilateral decision-making forum on climate change.
True, and in the years that followed, the COP conferences have brought the world together to address climate crisis, help vulnerable communities adapt to the effects of climate change, and plan towards net zero emissions by 2060.
This year, COP29 began last Monday in Baku, Azerbaijan. So far, several agreements have been reached in areas such as international carbon market standards.
Indeed, and Nigeria's National Council on Climate Change is a lead agency at the conference. It mentioned innovative financial solutions like blended finance and a clear distinction between development finance and climate finance as some areas for global focus.
Also, Nigeria recommitted to targets made in 2021 at COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland, to achieve net zero emissions by 2060. Several other agreements were signed by Nigeria, including a memorandum of understanding with China on green economy and the deepening of the renewable sector.
Well, Nigeria also underscored the importance of addressing short-lived climate pollutants like methane and black carbon, recognizing their significant impact on global warming. A memorandum of understanding was signed with China on methane mitigation.
There were also discussions around energy transition. Recall that in 2021, Nigeria became the first African country to develop a detailed energy transition plan. The plan is to tackle the dual crisis of energy, poverty, climate change, and deliver Sustainable Development Goal 7 by 2030, as well as net zero by 2060.
May I also mention that details of Nigeria's pathway for significant low-carbon development of energy systems cut across 5 key sectors, including power, cooking, transport, industry, and oil and gas.
Yes, Victor, and Nigeria's net zero target by 2060, we understand, requires about $410 billion above business as usual, spanning between 2021 and 2060.
Well, so far, some states in the country have rolled out climate and energy plans to help meet the country's national goals. Well, COP29 Summit in Baku, Azerbaijan is our focus on Good Morning Nigeria. Welcome to the program. I am Victor Azu.
And I'm Ademola Adeoye. I also welcome you to the program reaching you live on the network service of the NTA. In a short moment from now, Chukwudi Okoli Ugbaja will join us for newspaper review. Let's join Olajide Bello for the news this morning. Hello, Olajide.
Good morning, Ademola. Good morning, Victor. Good morning, Nigeria. And here's the news. Nigeria has joined the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, an initiative just launched at the ongoing summit of the G20 leaders in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. President Bola Tinubu made the commitment while addressing the summit, saying the fight against hunger and poverty must be a top priority for the world.
The fight against hunger and poverty is not a matter of choice, but a matter of priority for me. What do I get those steps? I have a very vibrant youth population, 70% below the age of 30. To all of us here, investment in education, investment in health.
President Tinubu has transmitted the medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper 2025 to 2027 to the Senate for consideration and approval. In the communication read by the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, the President expressed his hope of expeditious consideration and passage as it has embedded parameters upon which the 2025 budget is predicated. Also communicated to the Senate for approval is a request from the President of the $2.2 billion external borrowing plan. And also the President similarly submitted the 2025 to 2027 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper to the House of Representatives for its consideration and approval. The President is seeking expeditious approval of the medium-term expenditure framework as its physical assumptions and parameters will be basis for the 2025 budget. The House also requested to approve the implementation of $2.2 billion as new external borrowing to finance the 2024 budget deficit of 9.1 trillion naira. The Nigerian government has established the National Engineering and Innovation Fund, an initiative designed to provide grants and resources to engineers and technologists working on solutions to the nation's unique challenges. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in a message, announced the establishment of this fund, which it says aims to support local innovations, encourage entrepreneurship, and ensure that Nigeria remains at the forefront of engineering advancement in Africa. The federal government has lifted all restrictions on posting of core members to just 4 key sectors of the economy, effective with 2024 March C orientation course. Minister of Youth Development, Ayodele Olawande, stated this in Abuja. The Acting Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, has ordered investigation to unravel the circumstances surrounding a viral video purportedly with a senior army officer and 2 soldiers in an altercation with a man and a woman within the Abuja metropolis. A statement by the Director of Army Public Relations, Major General Onyema Nwachiku, assures the public that due diligence will be applied to reach a logical conclusion. And that's the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria continues in just a moment with Victor and Ademola after this break.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, the land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we swear in colors, we stand down in demand, we make solutions, we make passion, yeah. Ethnicity is unique, we are more than just a nation.
We are Nigeria, strengthening unity, we know they carry love. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
Win a brand new car. Make a purchase of 10 million naira or more at any Vento Furniture store and stand a chance to drive home a brand new car.
Vento Furniture, addictive quality.
My champs, they use energy at school.
Your champs need nourishing energy. Give them the new and improved Milo at breakfast.
It has nutrients that support energy release.
Milo! Our food, our health, our tomato paste. Erisco tomato paste, the taste of Nta. Erisco tomato paste, yeah. Richico tomato pesto, Tiwani. 100% natural tomato. Namunde, alelelelelele, oh, alelele, oh, ale. Erisco tomato paste, the taste of Nta.
Hey Eve, come and see the cool sales in here. Everything's on discount.
Yeah, I saw it already. But you know what? I've been thinking we should focus more on making things than just buying stuff.
What? You mean we shouldn't go for these awesome?
No. Hear me out, Nkechi. We are always chasing after new toys, upgrading gadgets, and buying things we don't really need. But what if we use that money to create something special?
Like what?
Anything! Instead of getting another fancy pair of shoes, we could start our own cool business together.
You mean we should become entrepreneurs?
Exactly! We could use our smart thinking to make something awesome for people. We might even make a big difference in our neighborhood.
You know what? You're right. We can learn a lot about money too.
Awesome! Let's be the heroes of our own story. Together, we can make a big change and break free from just buying stuff all the time.
One right action can make a big difference, right?
They swore an oath to serve our fatherland and defend the people. They traded their freedom, comfortable homes, and mortgaged their lives on the battleground for our unity and peaceful living. These are the great, loyal, and committed Nigerian armed forces who risked their lives courageously to safeguard our borders. But in the line of duty, many never returned. Nigerians, arise, let's celebrate our fallen heroes. Put on the remembrance emblem to support the incapacitated and families of our fallen heroes.
Thank you for your patriotic commitment to Nigerian unity, stability, and progress.
Parastatals, religious and corporate bodies to donate generously to the Emblem Appeal Launch. Send your donations to these accounts. Account name, Emblem Appeal Launch. Account number 393-200-7526. EcoBank Nigeria PLC.
My champs, they use energy at school.
Your champs need nourishing energy. Give them the new and improved Milo at breakfast.
It has nutrients that support energy release.
Milo! Welcome to the Emirates.
This Saturday, Arsenal.
Scott's got to be careful. Bukayo Saka!
Nottingham Forest.
He has rolled it to Hudson-Odoi, who finds his path closed, and in it goes!
Arsenal versus Nottingham Forest. Live on Sporty TV.
Sportybet sponsors coverage of the English Premier League.
Thank you for staying with us. Let's now take a look at what the papers are saying.
Chukudi Okoli Ubaja is here with us. Good morning, Chooks.
Good morning, Demola. How are you today?
Doing great.
I am under the weather, cough and cold. I'm in cough and Qatar. Hello, Victor.
It's the season.
Don't be afraid. I'm not going to give it to you. But remember, it's infectious.
I have immunity. Well, let's begin with, let me begin now, the People's Daily. And it leads with ICPC tracks 610 billion naira projects in 22 states. That story can be found on page 5. And just above that story, we have a double. With commitment and resilience, we will defeat banditry terrorism. That's according to Minister Badaru. And beside it, Tinubu seeks NAS approval to borrow 1.7 trillion naira. Approves restructuring of media team. You get details of that on page 3. And then just towards the bottom, NSCDC FCT parades 5 suspects for vandalism and theft. That one is on page 7. Police nab 2 suspects for killing uncle over witchcraft allegation. That's on page 6. G20 Summit, Tinubu endorses launch of Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty. Page 2. Beware of fraudulent contracts, projects, funding claims. That's according to CBN. And then compensation for structures on Kuje Airport Road corridor to gulp 1.1 billion naira. That's according to Wiki, and it's on page 21. With that, we head for the blueprint, which leads with this story. Senate seeks expeditious action for Tinubu's 1.77 trillion naira loan request. And it has a rider. President transmits 2025 to 2027 MTEF FSP to NAS. All right, and the picture story, of course, shows President Tinubu and others at the G20 Rio Summit. And just after that story, ICPC tracks 610 billion naira projects in 22 states, NDDC, NEDC, others to follow. And beside it, military remains guardian of Nigeria's unity, democracy. That's according to IBB and Abdul Salam, others. And finally, core members now eligible to work in banks, oil and gas. That's according to FG, and it's on page 7. Ajayi rejects outcome of Ondo governorship poll, heads to tribunal, page 9. And Shatima Akpabio senators pour tributes on late lawmaker Uba, page 7. And just before I drop this paper, of course, reference to the uncle that was killed for alleged witchcraft. The parrot tells one, the other. 2 men arrested for killing uncle over witchcraft. And the other replies, incredible. He couldn't bewitch them to escape. All right, Demola.
All right, thank you, Victor. I have the New Telegraph newspaper with me. And just above the nameplate, we have hardship. World Bank, IMF prescriptions have failed Nigeria, Africa. Gambari says Nigeria, Africa needs to define their problems, urges continent to strengthen institutions. Details of that story can be found on page 3. And the black strip there, it's federal government to establish National Youth Development Bank. Details on page 8. And below the nameplate, Core 29, Nigeria working towards achieving net zero emissions by 2060. Tinubu says North Development Center to Nigeria's prosperity. Then we have Wike, I will pay FCTA workers 70,000 minimum wage and 3 months arrears. That's Wike. While we are constructing new roads in satellite towns. The details of the story can be found on page 4 and 28. Tompolo alleges sabotage in fight against crude oil theft. ICPC tracks 610 billion naira projects in 22 states, FCT. Details on page 7 and 29. Shetima, Uba's free spirit, pull down political ethnic barriers. Then the major headline, drug trafficking, 10 Nigerians, 90 other foreigners executed in Saudi Arabia. Amnesty International, AFP. Details can be found on page 2 and 29. Ondo Gaba PDP candidate Ajayi rejects results, heads to tribunal. Court killings. We are losing our husbands, brothers. Edo women lament. That's the details of that story can be found on page 6. Housing crisis. Reps committee advocates urgent FMBN recapitalization. Farmers, scientists, others urge reps to ban GMO in Nigeria. The Nigeria's debt burden to hit 123.437 trillion as Tinubu seeks 1.767 trillion loan. Details on page 4 and 5. And in Borno, 15 soldiers, 40 insurgents killed in renewed attacks. Details of that story can be found on page 2, 3, and 29. WHO and 76,000 African women die of cervical cancer annually. Well, Chooks.
Yes, Demola, economics is not one of my strong points, but when you hear that the Senate is seeking expeditious action for Tinubu's 1.77 trillion naira loan request, you want to say, I hope we're not getting to the point where we should all get alarmed. The Debt Management Office has not raised any alarm. Remember, in the, toward the termination point of the Buhari administration, the DMO did, the Debt Management Office did raise, some slight alarm, little alarm over. So the question you ask is, I hope we can still sustain, this. Is it good for our financial health? When you bring in experts, they will tell us here, but it is something we need to raise. But the truth, the point is that it is already captured in the 2024 budget, the money being asked for. So this is just formal approval from both the House and the Senate. Let them just manage it well. What the economist says, if it's used for capital projects, well, yes, we're on the right path. I think, I don't know economics. I don't like parading what I don't know. I'm not deep in such knowledge. But I am one of those who think that Nigeria has not overborrowed yet. Remembering what potential it has to, when it gets more productive, all this is nothing, come to think of it. So the ultimate is, how productive are we making our economy? We just borrowed some money from AFDB the other day. So what effort is that going to, insert into agricultural pursuits? Because at the end of the day, agriculture, not oil, is the real show, so to speak, for Nigeria. But how much are we exploiting the God-given potentials of this country in that area? Our planning has to get better.
I think
we need to do that. We need to do better.
I think at the end of the day, what matters is what it is used for.
Judiciously.
That's what matters. And trying to say, well, that you want to defer to experts, then you must defer to them. Because if the DMO says, borrowing is a bit there's no slight alarm. Alarm is alarm. It's not slight and it's not big.
You said,
if it's an alarm already, then it's big.
Actually, in planning the budget, no money lies loose. It must be for something. You just asked a question. It is needed to part finance the budget, deficit of 9.7 trillion, naira for the 2024 budget. So that's what it needs to plug.
It's just that
if you remember that the United States, as big as they are, if you know the amount of money they owe China, China is practically, the lender to the United States, come to think of it. So it does not really mean that you are in dire straits as such.
At the end of the day, what we do with it.
No. I was telling you that no estimate lies idle. It is meant for something. That is what you mean by appropriation and all that.
Anyway, we should just check our borrowing because it is said that the borrower
because you have to pay.
The borrower is always a servant to the lender.
And you have to pay.
It was worse. Mr. Zelibe in primary school told us, he who goes a borrowing goes a sorrowing. You're just taking me back so many years back.
So it's
Well,
just
Let us
it's
be
fair,
careful.
and then that's where the issue of how many percent of the budget goes into debt servicing.
You are saying
So-
we should be careful.
Just be
They call
careful.
members now to work in banks, and they were not working there.
I had raised this
was
question with
surprised,
Demola
you know.
earlier in the day.
What was it?
It's not strange to me.
Were their accounting and business administration suspect credentials or what? I don't
Core
understand.
members have been everywhere as far as
Yeah.
I know.
Well, that's it couldn't have been written for nothing, you know. Come to think of it, I hardly see core members in banks. I didn't know that.
That's why they are lifting the, at least,
But oil and
the
gas,
restriction.
maybe banks, but oil and gas because of the sensitivity of the bank. But oil and gas,
Oil and gas.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, oil and gas.
I'm not sure that
Many of
people
them
will
want
go
to
there.
rush to Port Harcourt, NNPCL
So-
and all that. Please, let's not talk in ignorance. Journalists don't do that. We make sure of our facts, then we come out, you know, with all guns firing. Gambari, IMF, and World Bank have failed Nigeria. It's not just Nigeria they failed.
Africa.
Africa, come
That's what
together.
he said.
Sorry.
Africa.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Yeah, I failed Africa. You know, in those days when Walter Ofodagoro would say we need homegrown democracy, I would say, what is this man talking about? Homegrown democracy? Democracy is democracy. But I think in the case of financing of budgets and all that, an internal solution may be needed. That's why Africa's peer group, you know, stance, that is comparing notes and all that, will become very necessary. They need to come together as a continent and know how trade can be facilitated, all the things that make you earn that little extra naira and all that. IMF and World Bank, I don't know how much they really have helped the continent. I don't.
We keep listening to them.
We keep listening to them. Wike is paying only 70,000 naira.
Well, that's what he said.
Why?
While some other states are paying 75, 85, you know, some states that are
You
not
might
even
not
up
like Wike's politics, but Wike is not stingy. Why is he giving our youth commers only 70,000 naira?
No, youth
no,
copper.
sorry, minimum wage. Why would he give minimum wage of? I think that's low. I don't know what you think. It's just my opinion.
Well, I mean, considering that Abuja is, you know,
Yes.
is an expensive city to live in compared to other states.
And we should be the leading light.
Yes, Abuja and Lagos. How much is Lagos given? I think 85
or so.
Well,
85.
we must remember that the FCT is not a state.
Well, it's
It
not-
doesn't have the status
It's-
of a state by many,
How?
you know, ramifications.
How?
That
By
still does not
many
mean
ramifications.
they are
How?
not. They are not.
How? Right now,
me.
they have their own, I mean, several departments. They have their own permanent secretaries. There. So it's
Do
like...
they have the kind of budget or the kind of
The
allocation that goes to
the
the
budget
They do.
suits the budget suits the near mayoralty status they have.
Yeah.
I mean, Abuja is not like the states too in terms of all the things you need to spend money on.
Anyway,
Well, I think you should add more money to that. My opinion.
Yeah.
maybe there will be a second
Maybe.
tranche.
Maybe if he's watching, he'll say, "What is this loudmouth talking about?" You know.
We are losing our husbands and brothers. I do women lament.
Well, who are they losing the husbands to?
Cults.
Cults.
Cult wars.
Cult killings.
Cult killings. Who was it? Asaba,
Edo.
the new
Edo women.
Asaba of Asaba was talking to the Inspector General of Police.
Yeah, just
The
yesterday.
Yahoo boys and them, what do you call them? They are practically taking over Asaba. We are in trouble in this country. Whom did we become? When I talk about it, I sound old-fashioned. We were not this way. So when did the disconnect happen between us and our children? And now they've gone haywire. They don't even listen to us anymore. Well, mine still manage to listen to me. But I think something is terribly wrong in terms of they've gone off tangent.
We have to keep talking about it.
We have to.
So
Well,
that
Thank you.
They own this
work
country.
towards the change.
Demola and Chuku, they are crossing to the other side.
Well,
Anyway.
talks.
we must
Jukes.
thank you now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
and
you.
make sure you grab a cup of coffee on your way out.
Thank God you don't tell me to break a leg anymore.
All right. Good Morning Nigeria continues just after this break. Please stay with us.
use energy at school.
Your champs need nourishing energy. Give them the new and improved Milo at breakfast.
It has nutrients that support energy release.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
The federal government of Nigeria warns vandals of national assets, electricity transmission towers, cables and other facilities to desist from this act of sabotage. Vandalism is a serious crime punishable under the law. Vandalizing electrical equipment will affect millions of Nigerians, including your loved ones. Remember that national assets belong to all of us, hence the need to protect them. Report all cases of suspicious movement around electrical facilities to security agencies. When you see something, say something. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation in collaboration with the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, Office of the National Security Advisor.
My champs, they use energy at school.
Your champs need nourishing energy. Give them the new and improved Milo at breakfast.
It has nutrients that support energy release.
This Sunday, live on Sporty TV.
Bienvenidos a Bilbao, bienvenidos a San Mamés.
Athletic Bilbao versus Real Sociedad. Watch live on Sporty TV.
Brought to you by SportyBet. Play with champions.
Nigeria means a lot to me.
And Nigeria means peaceful cohesion.
My country.
We continue to pray, and then hopefully we will come to understand that unity of purpose, unity of living together.
Our ethnic beliefs and background and culture is our strength.
Ever since the amalgamation period of 1914 to date, about 109 years ago, the people of Nigeria live very peacefully with one another.
I think diversity helps a lot to enhance robust development in Nigeria.
All over the country, you have so many ethnic groups, over 250. That is enough to tell you that this is a blessed country that, God has kept, together as one indivisible entity.
This Sunday, Napoli.
And Kvaratskhelia.
Roma.
This with the ball in, headed towards goal and in.
Napoli versus Roma. Live on Sporty TV.
SportyBet sponsors coverage of the Italian Serie A.
Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Before we delve further into our conversation for today, let's listen to this background report by Oyeyemi Ajayi.
Nigeria's participation at COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan, focuses more on efforts of the country in the mitigation of the effects of climate change. This supports the world's efforts to address climate change and its effects, and has been the subject of discussion for almost 3 decades at the annual Conference of Parties COP of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. This year's COP is the 29th edition of the conference. Nigeria is there to advance its climate change agenda and related issues, and also have high expectations. Nigeria's long-term low-emission development strategy and carbon markets program have already been commended by the conference parties. The country has committed to starting efforts towards achieving net zero emissions by 2060, as promised at COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland in 2021. Parties are negotiating a new collective quantified goal, a more ambitious, transparent and predictable climate finance target that better addresses the needs of developing countries for mitigation, adaptation and loss and damage. The second week of the 29th session of the Conference of the Parties to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change started on a high note, with parties adopting a number of decisions. Some of these were negotiated at the UNFCCC's subsidiary bodies in June 2024 session, including several decisions on capacity building and extension of the mandate of the working group facilitating the implementation of the local communities and indigenous peoples platform. Parties also adopted decisions agreed to during the first week of COP29, including on matters relating to least development countries and technology. Now, will some of these decisions and agreements be implemented domestically amongst countries, especially in Nigeria? What are some of Nigeria's gains so far? Our guests will be answering these and more questions shortly. All right, many thanks, Oyeyemi Ajayi, for that background report. Let's now begin introducing our guests for the conversation. And let me begin with Dr. Chimereme Ohajinwa, who is here with us in the studio, environmental toxicologist and public health expert. She is the team lead C-Circle Foundation for Sustainable Health and Environment. A pleasure to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, sir.
Also joining us this time from our Kaduna studio in Kaduna State is Professor Awal Farouk Abdul Salam, Professor of Applied Meteorology and Environmental Sustainability, Kaduna State University. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
And Good Morning Nigeria.
All right. Also joining us via Zoom from Baku is Representative Samuel Onuigbo, former member of the House of Representatives and sponsor of Nigeria's bill for the current Climate Change Act, and Southeast representative on the board of Northeast Development Commission. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much indeed.
Right. And still joining us via Zoom from Baku is Dr. Nkuruka Madweke. She is the DG CEO, National Council on Climate Change. Dr. Nkuruka, you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
All right. Let's just stay with you, Dr. Nkuruka, being the DG CEO of National Council on Climate Change, and we know that you are there. Can you just tell us about the COP29? What exactly are the objectives of COP29?
So very clearly, the objective for this COP, nicknamed the Finance COP, is to ensure that we firm up on the climate finance objectives and commitments. One of the things that Africa is asking that is, in addition to the 100 billion already pledged, is that the developed countries would also scale it up to 1.3 trillion. And we're also saying to them that there has to be a reform of the current finance architecture to ensure that what is called climate finance is climate finance and is not confused with development finance, which are two different things, and to ensure that the developed countries meet their pledges, that is no longer talk as usual, but those talk will be merged with, matched with clear investment opportunities and options. And then secondly as well is firming up on Article 6 of Paris Agreement that touches on carbon markets, basically firming up on the structure for Article 6.2, 6.4, and also 6.8. For us as African, for us as Nigeria, the carbon market presents an opportunity for us to have what we call non-oil revenues to ensure that we're able to meet up on our NDC priorities as well. Thank you.
Right, many thanks, Dr. Maduekwe, for your opening remarks. Let's just get across to our Representative Samuel Onibo, who is not too far from where you are there. Good to see you, Mr. Onibo.
Yes.
Just wanted to find out, I'm sure you've listened to Dr. Maduekwe. What have the proceedings been like? Does it look to you like it's going in a way that it could be more productive than the last time out?
Well, thank you very much indeed. We are making progress in that things are getting, taking a proper shape. By this, I'm talking about even as a continent, we are negotiating and speaking with one voice. If you have had the chance to read the speech by Mr. President, presented by the minister, you would find that everything we said there, yes, we're taking our position as a nation, but it's aligned, if you are discussing this issue of carbon market, it's aligned with the position of Africa on the issue of carbon market. And why I say that this is making progress is that last year during COP28 in Dubai, Mr. President activated a committee where he appointed the director, the DG of National Council on Climate Change, and the chairman of Federal Inland Revenue as co-chairman on how to activate the market. And then, if you look at that, you will find that that is based on the law. Because if you go to section 4, subsection I of the law, you will find that there is that requirement as part of the functions of the NCCC to be able to come up with these things in a collaborative manner. It's the NCCC that has the authority to coordinate, but then it has to be able to do these things along with Federal Inland Revenue. That's when you're talking about carbon tax. And then you're talking about carbon as a whole, as provided in section 19. You are going to carry along ministries of environment, national planning, and all that, and also Ministry of Trade. So for us, having the law in place, and then these things are falling in place gradually. Yes, there's a challenge about negotiating Article 6. It's been there, and the concern we have is that this is almost 9 years since this was passed, and countries are still having challenges. Even the global north, they are not coming forward, but progress is being made, and the joy that I have is that this is coming in a coordinated and sustained way. That's why I'm hopeful that we are moving towards the right path.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much, Honorable. We'll get back to you. Let's go to our Kaduna studio where we have Professor Awal Farouk Abdusalam, and my question will be that do you think, or how will this summit actually address the growing concerns of, let's say, growing concerns about climate change, particularly in the vulnerable communities in Africa?
That's a very good question because all this climate discussion, negotiation, and the conference of parties of 29 years, the benefit or the main the focus of it is to trickle down to the downtrodden, and they're the most vulnerable people to be affected by this climate change from all angles, especially here in sub-Saharan Africa and in Nigeria, where by geography and by our underlying socio-economic factors are readily vulnerable to the climate, to the changing climate, and we are witnessing these vulnerabilities and reactions to it. So coming back to the negotiation, like I said, this is the 29th year of these negotiations. This year's objectives were so ambitious, but generally, from the way the researchers and monitoring what is going, I mean the outcome and the implementation of the outcomes, you can rate it very, very low, and this is to some extent dashing the hope of these vulnerable communities. For example, this year's COP focus on financing, which is very good, ambitious, from billions to trillions, climate education. But to me, the most important thing for countries like Nigeria and Africa is to focus on the issue of adaptation strategies, which the vulnerable communities, as you said, have already, from local researchers, have already been coming up with ways to adapt. Very crude ways to adapt, and some of them don't even know or don't even really understand what is going on. So, connecting the vulnerable communities to the COP is very difficult because the access, the benefits cannot be seen or are not visible at all so far. We don't want to say that the discussions are just for the elites, for the scientists, of course, are there, but these are national governments coming to discuss. But most of the most of the resolutions are not well implemented. Especially, example is the 100 billion per year fund, which is very difficult for African states to access because of the protocols in accessing the funding. Now there is a call for increasing the funding. I think the most important thing is to call for accessibility, and that is the only way that will help our government to transition from non to clean energy, which is very, very necessary in fighting climate change.
Victor. All right, thank you very much. Prof, thank you very much. Let me get now into the studio where May is. You've had the privilege of listening to all of our guests, those in Baku and outside of Baku. What would you say are the most important decisions taken at this year's climate so far when it concerns Nigeria?
All right, so good morning, everyone. Good morning, Nigeria again. So this year, there's a lot of focus on increasing climate finance and making it clear that there's a difference between climate finance and developmental finance. So we don't confuse both. So when you're talking about climate finance, it's like you're driving to the climate change impacts. How does it affect, how does it improve in relation to climate change, not just developmental finance that is focusing on reduction of poverty. Yes, there can be interchange, but it's better we have very clear goals and guidelines on what we want to do. And so at this year's COP, the emphasis is on how can the developing countries get the developed countries to pay more this year. So last time it was $100 billion. This year they are estimating higher. Like, how can we get it to be working? How can we operationalize what is there? So it's not just going to be ambitions, but actions this time around. And then how can we operationalize it? Even things that has been done in 2 years ago, like COP27, we talked about loss and damage, but how can we get it operationalized? How can we make sure that these things are measurable and we're achieving them, not just talking. These are the major things we're discussing at this year's COP in relation to other things that have been happening over the years, like I said, Honorable Nibo said. So for 9 years, you've had this, that. Can we measure them? So it doesn't look like we're just talking. So that's what they're focusing on this year.
And for Nigeria, what should be the most important concerns out of it, the most important wins out of COP29?
Okay, so for every COP29, every country, so COP, for people that don't know, COP is a conference of parties, and it's a conference where you discuss climate change, which has become a lot of issues. So there are countries that have been underwater, flooding, that has been there for a long time. A good number is Sudan. Some part of Sudan has been under the particular state. So if you're looking at
Nigeria
has flooding, but it's like we have these splashes that goes, then comes, but there are places that has been very, very destructive, right? So sometimes you look far-fetched when you're talking about it in Nigeria. And so Nigeria also went to this COP with what we call nationally determined contributions. So meaning that there are things we want to achieve. We are looking at how can we use renewable energy more, invest more in it. So this helps Nigeria to look. So when we go for COP, it brings visibility. It helps us to align ourselves better with the international community, with other African countries. How can we partner more, increase things that make us improve on our climate change? How can we reduce emissions? How can we partner more to do better? You know, Nigeria is investing in renewable energy a lot, in solar, in wind. Now, Nigeria has added climate change and health to our national determining contribution. So it's not just we are managing waste, we are increasing on renewable energies, we are looking at transportation, but also health, the impact on health as well. So yes, these are important things. Those 7 things that Nigeria went to cope with is what they are focusing on. And most importantly, how can we get more money from developed countries to implement these strategies in Nigeria?
How we can get more money from the developing countries from developed countries to implement all this in Nigeria. So let's go. Let's direct that question to the DG. Just like your opening remarks, you talked about the emphasis it's on finance. That is development finance and climate finance. My question would be: what funding mechanism are available to support climate change mitigation and adaptation efforts, especially in developing countries?
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to clarify, when I said finance, I said clearly that there has to be a distinction between climate finance and development finance. And that's what we as Africa were also saying to the world, that do not lump it up. There's development finance and there's climate finance. The other, in terms of finance available to countries, you have multilateral finance or funding like the GCF, the GEF as well. You also have adaptation fund. You also have as well philanthropy fund. You also have parties also contributing as well to assist other countries. We're talking about money coming from the north to the south. You also have South-South partnerships that will help to bridge the gap. What we're also saying, or what I've seen clearly in this COP, is the fact that as a country, we need to have very clear finance strategy. We have to have very clear pipeline of projects. That is what is coming out from this COP, that if we want to get investment, we need to be clear as to who we want and where we want financing for. And then as well, one of the things we are saying to them is that we don't want loans. We're already overburdened by loans. How can you help us to meet build our resilience with regards to adaptation? Because that is very key for us as Africa and as Nigerians as well. We're saying to the global community that we did not contribute to carbon to climate change. Our emissions are as low as 3%. I mean, we're talking about the continent. And so if at all you're going to help us, you have to help us build resilience with regards to adaptation. Yes, we understand that mitigation, yes. But one of the things we have seen is that a lot of people want to fund mitigation and not adaptation. Why? Because can you hear me? Yes. Because
we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Because mitigation, with mitigation, you have high return on investment. But with adaptation, it's more like there's really no, what do you call it, profit in that. And so you see, the focus for them is mitigation. But the focus for us is adaptation. And that's what it is we are chasing. And we're calling and we're saying to them, listen, you have to bring in more money for adaptation. And that is the stance that Africa is taking as a continent, and Nigeria is also taking as a country. All the forums we go to, with regards to methane emission reductions, with regards to building climate smart agriculture, with regards to renewable energy solutions, we're also bringing up the issue of value chain localization and saying these are opportunities for you to come and manufacture these solutions in Nigeria with regards to Project Evergreen. And so these are the conversations we're having on the table, and we're putting it out there to say, listen, Nigeria is a market for you. But as a country, you cannot overburden us with excess, with more loans. Can we think grants to help us move and build our resilience, our adaptation, because we already have low adaptive capacity, and that's why the impact of climate change is affecting us the way it is. So these are the issues on ground. And like I said, just to be very clear, one of the things that is coming out very clearly, leaving COP29, is coming back home and ensuring that we have clear finance plan. I don't know if you're aware, but we have the nationally determined contribution implementation framework that we are now turning to a financial plan. And what is doing for us is that we are merging the energy transition plan, the NDC implementation framework, which we're turning to a financial plan, the adaptation compact that we have, and also to merge them all together to ensure that Nigeria has one clear document that can tell any investor, with regards to adaptation, bring in money here. With regards to mitigation, bring in money here. So taking away from COP29 is Nigeria needs to have very clear financial strategy, investment pipeline of projects that will be able to drive in investment. And again, important is operationalizing the climate change fund that is in the Act. With the climate change fund, Nigeria is able to warehouse multilateral financing, multilateral funding. We're able to also get money from, as well, the National Assembly. We're also able to get money from states and coerce it together, collect it together, and be able to address the issues in the subnationals. Like my colleague in the States said, again, what is coming out again, I'm so sorry, what is coming out again from this COP is there has to be an alignment from the national to subnational. And one of the good things that has happened in this COP was that we were able to bring, as the National Council on Climate Change Secretariat, we're able to bring participants from the states, from the subnationals. We first and foremost trained them as negotiators, and secondly, what we were able to bring them with support from the funders, from donor partners, because you have to bridge that communication gap. These things happen at the subnationals. At the national, we do the law, we do the policy, but at the end of the day, these things happen at the states, and so the states need to be on the table. They need to understand, and so these are the things that are coming up this COP29 that we're going back home to Nigeria to ensure that all these issues are effectively and efficiently addressed.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Maduekwe. I'll just cross over again to Representative Samuel Onibo. When you were pushing for the climate law, when you were pushing through your bill, what you envisioned, what you envisaged, how far have we come with implementation as a country? Have we lived up to expectation, given how many years have now gone by? Are we where we ought to be? Because Nigeria also has its own responsibilities. When you are calling on others to meet you at certain points, you also have responsibilities to meet them, somewhere halfway. So have we reached where we ought to be?
Thank you very much. Well, it's a great ambition. So maybe imagine that we have already reached where we ought to be. No, we have not reached there. But one thing is clear. The law in itself, the Climate Change Act, when we were for the president of the Association of Local Governments of Nigeria, which is 774 of them,